Alright, greetings and salutations everybody. This is Rollinwolf coming at you with another episode of Beta 1.5. I do apologize. I had intended to do a bunch of videos yesterday. I went and did some running around, and whenever I got back, I made some food, and I could not quit copying yesterday. I had a bunch of copying episodes where every 15-20 minutes I would just start hacking and copying. I've been dealing with whatever cold or whatever I've got going on right now, and yesterday just was not a good day for recording, so hopefully today will go better. I definitely want to get moving on the content that we had discussed previously. This is episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about domains. To go over that, just a general brief bit of description of how I intend to go over the content. We'll go over the domain itself individually, and then we're going to go over the abilities for the first level, first tier cards that you have access to, and we'll go through all of the domains, and that will be mainly what we cover in this episode. And then next episode we'll start getting into the classes specifically, and we'll just keep on moving, and hopefully get you guys closer to having everything you need as far as how to proceed to make a character and the choices you have ahead of you. Very quickly, let's go over the copyright notice. This product was created using the Darrington Press Community Gaming License, the Illuminated World's Standard Resource Documents, Darrington Press, LLC, all rights reserved. Specifically, we are discussing the Beta 1.5 rules for Daggerheart. The finished product is due out in the spring of 2025, and you can expect me to cover those differences and switch over to the full rules once we have them in our hot little hands. So let's get cracking on these domains. I hope that everyone is having a good day today, and that maybe this brightens up your day a little bit going over this great game from Darrington Press. So what are domains? Domains are going to be the abilities and spells that kind of define what your character can do, and what abilities you have chosen to give them to stand out and be those heroic characters that you want them to be. Each class has access to 2 domains, and there are 9 classes and there are 9 domains. So each class shares each of its domains with one other class. So for example, you might have a druid that is, let's just take a look at Arcana. So the 2 classes that have the Arcana domain are druid and sorcerer, and then the other domain example for druid is going to be sage, and the other domain for sorcerer, I do believe, yes, is midnight. So they both share the Arcana domain, and then the druid is Arcana and sage, and the sorcerer is Arcana and midnight. And then when you look at the sage domain and the midnight domain, they also each have a second class that has access to those, and they will have access to a separate domain other than Arcana. So that way, each class is going to have a mix of 2 domains that are accessible by 2 other classes as well. For first level in the beta, each domain has 3 level 1 cards. You can have the same card as someone else in your party. That is always a choice that you can make, and the flavor doesn't have to be the same between your ability and your fellow player's ability. You could both, for example, have wall walking, and as a druid, you could be saying that you're wall walking is inspired through your natural mystical abilities that you have through your druid nature and how you've set up your lore, whereas the sorcerer could depict their wall walking as from their innate sources, or however they want to depict it. Just because you have the same ability as someone else in your party does not mean that it has to have the same lore and flavoring attached to it. That being said, let's get into Arcana. So as you know, I've already stated the two classes that have access to the Arcana domain are Druid and Sorcerer. What is Arcana? Arcana is the domain of innate or instinctual use of magic per the book, per the beta rules, and it states that those who walk that walk this path, they tap into raw enigmatic forces of the realm to manipulate both the elements and their own energy, and it offers a volatile power that is incredibly potent when correctly channeled. Let's look at the three first tier cards, domain abilities that you can choose from if you happen to be choosing the Druid or Sorcerer class as your choice. Also, we don't have these rules yet, but there are obviously going to be rules for creating your own classes, combining probably the existing domains in ways that do not exist to form their own classes. We don't have those rules yet, and so therefore we can't really talk to that. But Arcana itself, as you can see, is for someone who wants to represent a character, a hero that is got innate instinctual use of magic. As an example, we have some the level 1 abilities. We've got Unleash Chaos, which is classified as a spell. And the card states that at the beginning of a session, you place a number of tokens equal to your spellcasting trait on this card. You can make a spellcast roll against a target within far range and spend any number of the tokens that you have to channel the raw energy within yourself and unleash it against them. On a success, you roll a number of d10 equal to the tokens that you spend, and you do that much magic damage to the target. You mark a stress to replenish this card with tokens up to your spellcasting trait. You clear all of these tokens at the end of the session. So at initial character creation, you got your +2s, your +1s, your 0s, and your -1. More than likely, your spellcasting trait is going to be your +2. May not be. You may have decided to represent your character in a different fashion, but regardless, you're going to look at your spellcasting trait, and you're going to put that many tokens onto this card for free at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the session. When you use those up, you can spend a stress and replenish those tokens. As you get more powerful, you'll have more tokens on this card at a time. So generally speaking, at your first level, you'll probably either have a +2 or a +1 to your spellcasting trait, more than likely, and you would put that many tokens on there. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and you'll see that throughout the domain cards, the information you need for that card is right there on your card. You can also see that if you're looking at the card, you'll see that little 1 with the little lightning bolt symbol. That means that it got a recharge cost of 1. We'll go over recharge costs and what those mean for you later in the series. They're not something you will immediately need to worry about in your campaign, because you're not going to have your maximum number of domain cards for the first few levels. But eventually you will acquire more domain cards than you have loadout space, and at that point you will need to decide what cards, what domain abilities your character currently has loaded out available to their disposal at the moment, and then what it means whenever you want to swap those out and trade them for other cards that you have in reserve to bring them into your loadout. This is going to cost you 1 to do that. Basically is what that boils down to. We're going to move on to the next card in the Arcana domain, and it is another spell card. It is called Rollinwolf. You have a deeply personal trinket that can be infused with protective magic and held as a ward by you or an ally. You describe what it is and why it's important to you. So it's all you on the flavor. When the holder of the ward takes damage, they can spend a hope to reduce it by 1d8. If the ward die rolls an 8, its power will temporarily end after it reduces damage this turn, and it can be recharged for free on your next turn. So if you actually max out and you get that 8, you can't use it again until you've recharged it on your next turn. But if it doesn't, then you can continue to spend hope if you got attacked a second time that round, as long as you did not exhaust your ward by rolling an 8, then you could spend another hope to reduce the damage of the next attack. Pretty self-explanatory as well. And then the third and final Arcana domain ability that we have, that's a rank 1, is another spell. It is called Wall Walk. And you can spend a hope to allow a creature you can touch to climb on walls and ceilings as easily as walking on the ground below. This lasts until the end of the scene or when you cast it on another creature. So it can only be used on one person at a time, and you spend a hope to do so, and it lasts until either the scene ends or until you use it on someone else. The Rune Ward is a 0 cost for bringing it into your loadout, and the Wall Walk is a 1. So that covers the first level, the first tier cards for the Arcana domain. Next, we're gonna go down the domains in alphabetical order. And we are only going to discuss and cover the first tier abilities in this discussion. You will be able to pull up the beta information and look at the 2nd through 10th level tier cards. So we're not going to take that deep of a dive today. We are going to cover all of your tier 1 options for character creation. So let us move on. Excuse me, I'm going to take a sip. Alright, so let us move on to our second domain, which is the Blade domain. Blade is the domain, per the beta rules, Blade is the domain of those who dedicate their lives to the mastery of weapons, whether by blade, bow, or perhaps a more specialized arm. Those who follow this path have the skill to cut short the lives of others. Blade requires study and dedication from its followers in exchange for inexorable power over death. So this is definitely for characters that you want to represent that weapon prowess with. The classes that have access in the beta to the Blade domain are the Guardian class and the Warrior class. So let's look at these domain abilities. So the first one is going to be called Not Good Enough. It is an ability. It has a recharge of 1. And I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology on that. I'm going to say recall instead of recharge after seeing the way Rune Ward is worded. I do not want to cause confusion, and I do believe that that is the recall cast, the recall cost, not a recharge. As it in the Arcana domain, it does say that it can be recharged for free on your next rest, and I believe recall is the correct terminology for that little black circle that's in the upper right hand corner on these cards. That is going to be your recall cost. Okay, now that I've clarified that and hopefully averted any confusion I caused, let us get into this first Blade Domain ability. It's called Not Good Enough. When you roll your damage dice, you may re-roll any 1s or 2s. If you do, you must take the new result even on a 1 or 2. So this is a passive ability that your character with the Blade Domain for beta, that's Guardians and Warriors. Anytime, if you choose this ability, anytime, no hope cost, no stress cost. Just if it happens, you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage dice, you can re-roll those 1s or 2s. You do have to take the result, even no matter what it is. Even if you roll the 2 the first time, and the second time you roll it, it goes down to a 1. You got to take the 1. This is not a way to perpetually continue to roll until you don't have 1s or 2s. It just gives you a shot at doing more damage because of your prowess. Your second option for Tier 1 Blade Domain is, and all of the Blade Domain Tier 1 abilities, Tier 1 choices are abilities. The second one is Retaliation. Not Good Enough has a recall cost of 1. Retaliation has a recall cost of 1 as well. I do apologize, I'm getting tongue-tied with the words here. Let's look at what Retaliation does. When you take damage from a creature in melee range, you may mark a stress to immediately deal weapon damage to the creature at half your proficiency, rounded up. So you will always do a minimum of 1, and whenever you get to where you have a 3 in proficiency, you will round that up to you're doing 2 dice of damage on your Retaliation, and so forth and so forth. So the odds are in your favor in Retaliation. They do not round down, they round up. It does cost a stress to decide to use your Retaliation, but you will notice that it is not a attack option. It is a straight up, you hurt me, I'm hurting you. There's no roll for damage. There's no chance of failing the attack roll. It is straight up, you're retaliating. You're getting them back. You're doing some damage. Option number 3 is a 0 recall ability called Whirlwind. You make an attack roll against a target using a weapon with melee or very close range. On a success, after you've succeeded, on a success, you may spend a hope to use that roll against every other enemy in that weapon's range, be it melee or very close range. Any additional enemies that you succeed against with the ability take half the damage rounded up from your original attack damage. So you make that roll, you hit, you get success. At that point, you may spend a hope. Then you would roll your damage. The full damage goes to your initial target. Half damage rounded up goes to everyone else within range of that weapon, be it melee or very close range. These are all three very nice abilities. They definitely feel very iconic for any kind of melee, combat focused type character. I'm sure would be happy to have any of these in their arsenal. And remember that at character creation, you get to choose 2 domain cards, and they can be from the same domain, or you can choose one from each domain your character class has access to. So yes, you could choose 2. So a warrior or a guardian could choose 2 of these blade domain abilities if they wanted to, or they could choose 2 of their domain abilities from their other domain, or they could choose 1 from each. That is totally up to you, the player, on how you want to choose those domain abilities. We're going to move along and keep things trucking. The next domain is going to be the bone domain. Your bone domain is the ranger class and the warrior class, and all of the abilities, the tier 1 cards for the bone domain are also abilities. Our first one is got a recall cost of 0. It is called Deft Maneuvers. And before we get into the cards, let's go over what the beta describes as the bone domain. So bone is the domain of mastery, of swiftness, and tactical mastery. Practitioners of this domain have an uncanny control over their own physical abilities and an eye for predicting the behaviors of others in combat. Bone grants its adherents unparalleled understanding of bodies and their movement in exchange for diligent training. And let me say that I am reading these directly from the beta 1.5, which you can, if you would like to, go and download on Darrington Press's website. They have it still available to you, and I assume that it's going to be there until the release of the standard rules in the spring of 2025. But it is available for you to access as well, so you can even download it right now, pull it up, and read along with us if you would like. You can look at these cards as well. You have access to them as well. Let's get into the Tier 1 domain cards. Deft Maneuvers. It's got a recall of 0. You can mark a stress to move anywhere within far range without making an agility roll to get there. Oof, that is pretty impressive. You can move up to far range. In Daggerheart, we've already discussed ranges don't have mechanical, crunchy. It's exactly this. It is a range that is meant to serve the narrative. You've got melee, you've got very close, which is roughly 10 to 15 feet. So further than melee, which is your immediate range around you, but out to, say, another 10 to 15 feet is your very close range. Then your close range is roughly 30 feet. So you've got melee, very close, and then from very close to 30 foot is the close range. And then from that 30-foot range to, I want to say roughly, I believe the estimate was around 90-ish feet, is far range. And then beyond far range is very far, which is beyond 90 foot, everything you can see is considered very far, as long as it's beyond 90 foot. So hopefully that will help clarify the distances here for you. Our second card for the bone domain has a recall cost of 1. It is called Untouchable. It is an ability. While this card is in your loadout, you get to add half of your agility score to your evasion, rounded up. It's a very nice way to make yourself, if you want to play a character that is not going to get hit, if that is your if that is what you're striving to do, is you just get out of the way, and you want to play that type of character. Untouchable is definitely a good card to put into your loadout, and it will grow with your character. Once again, this is a round-up situation, the odds being in your favor. The third and final Tier 1 Bone Domain card is got a recall cost of 1. It is an ability called I See It Coming. When you are targeted by an attack coming from beyond melee range, you can mark a stress, roll a d4, and increase your evasion against this attack by its value. Now, it says d4, it doesn't say 1d4. So, in this circumstance, I would interpret it that's saying you roll a proficiency's worth, whatever your proficiency is, that's how many d4s you roll. And you increase your evasion score for this one attack by that value. So this is definitely the I'm agile, I'm quick, I'm aware, I'm getting out of the way. Not bad abilities in this Bone Domain, which you're gonna find. I believe you're gonna find good choices from what I have seen. I think you're gonna be hard pressed to be able to look at things and go like, oh, this is definitely the mechanical way I want to go. This is gonna give me the best combination. I think there's enough abilities and choices here that you're going to find all kinds of combinations that can be very synergistic, work well with each other, and I don't think there's going to be things that you're going to find that are like, take the cake, everyone's got this, no one else is going to make any other choices because this is the best and this is the best, and other things are obsolete. I don't think that is going to happen. You may have players that are striving to do that, and if they have found something that they feel that is it for them, let them be happy about it, let them enjoy it, and be a fan of that. But I'm a fan of the fact that these options are so narrative and so well done that there's not clear-cut decisions to make other choices obsolete. I don't think you've got any domains that are just subpar. I don't think they're I think it's going to be a lot of decisions based on where you want your character to shine, and I think there's going to be a lot of hard choices that people are going to have to make because you want so much of the goodness that is in these domains. We will move on to the next domain, which is Codex. Sorry, I do want to try and avoid getting into those coughing fits that I was having yesterday, so I am going to be hydrating, drinking a little bit of my tea throughout the videos today to try and discourage any kind of rough coughing. So, and I do apologize if it does happen, but let's continue on. So, our next domain, we're third of the way done, guys, is the Codex domain. Codex is the domain of intensive magical study. Those who seek magical knowledge turn to the recipes of power recorded in books, on scrolls, etched into walls, tattooed onto bodies, runic knots, whatever you want to represent them as. Codex offers a commanding and versatile understanding of magic to those devotees who are willing to seek beyond the common knowledge. So these are the things that are going to most feel like your traditional magic of like a learned nature from other RPGs. The cards themselves reference them as grimoires. Instead of just spell or ability, it is a grimoire because each codex has a collection of abilities that come with it. It is up to you to determine how these abilities, these spells, are representative. You could have a spell book. You could have an actual grimoire. You could have them tattooed. As they said, scrolls. You could have parchment. You could have runes. You could have them tied into little knots. They could be orally passed on from master to apprentice. It is really up to you how to flavor your grimoire. And also keep in mind that the card can be flavored as you wish. Just because the first tier 1 card is called the Book of Ilat does not mean that in game you have to reference it either as a book or as a being of Ilat. This is a meta card that gives you those choices and abilities. Now, if you want to embrace the Book of Ilat and dictate that, this was some ancient wizard or practitioner of mystical arts, that they are the ones that discovered and put these 3 abilities together in this fashion, that's up to you. It's your fiction. Do with it what you like. That being said, the recall cost of the Book of Ilat is 2. The abilities it has, we've got Slumber. Make a spellcast roll against a very close target. On a success, they fall into a deep sleep until they take damage, or the GM spends a fear to awaken them. So that's your first ability. Number 2, Arcane Barrage. Once per short rest, use an action to spend any number of hope and shoot magical projectiles that automatically strike an enemy within close range. You roll d6 equal to the hope you spent and deal that much direct magic damage. So, once per short rest, you decide how many hope you want to spend. You get to roll that many d6 magical projectiles. You can determine what they look like. You want them to be arrows, bolts, mystical, energy, stars, shuriken, fruit. Like it's whatever you want it. It can take whatever form you want it to. This is a great opportunity to accentuate and get that flavor for your spellcaster that you want it to have. This is another chance for you to really personalize and make your character stand out. And the third and final ability in the Book of Ilat is Telepathy. You may open a line of mental communication with one target you can see. This connection lasts until you use a spell to connect with another creature. So it's a line of sight, no additional cost, and you can swap it around as often as you would like, but it can only be one individual at a time. Let us move on to our second card in the Codex. Also has a recall of 2. It's called the Book of Tafar. The first ability underneath the Book of Tafar is Wild Flame. You make a spellcast roll against up to 3 enemies in melee range of you. A flame erupts from your hand, dealing 2d6 magical damage and a stress to any you succeed against. Very nice ability. Does not cost you any stress or hope. Does not have a uses per rest. So this is a at-will ability that you can use against up to 3 enemies within melee range. Your second ability, underneath the Book of Tafar, which these are the cards are a grimoire. These are actually spells within the grimoire. I'm saying abilities, and I probably shouldn't, because abilities do have a very mechanical distinction from spells. So, this second spell in the grimoire is Magic Hand. You can reach out with a magical hand the same size and strength as your own to anywhere within far range of you. That's pretty self-explanatory. The third spell is Mysterious Mist. You can use an action to spend a hope and cast a temporary thick fog that encircles a stationary area up to very close range of your current location. Everyone within is hidden to anyone outside the fog. There you have it. That's the Book of Tafar. Nice little collection of iconic magic. And the third and final Tier 1 card in the Codex is the Book of Ava, or Ava. It also has a recall cost of 2. The first spell in the grimoire is Power Push. You make a spell cast roll against a target in melee range. On a success, they are blasted back to far range and take D10 plus 2 magic damage using your proficiency. So you got proficiency of 2. That would be 2d10 plus 2 magic damage. When your proficiency bumps up to 3, 3d10 plus 2. Very nice, especially if you want to represent a spellcaster that does not want melee characters getting up in their face. It's a very, very nice, iconic, wizardly kind of spell. Another option here in the Book of Ava, the second spell in this grimoire is Tava's Armor. You can use an action to spend a hope that gives a target you can touch plus 1d6 to their armor score the next time they mark an armor slot. You can't stack Tava's armor on one creature, but it does says you cannot stack it on one creature, but you could, according to that distinction, you could spend a hope on yourself. You could spend a hope on each of your allies if you wanted to, and the next time they mark an armor slot, they would get to add a d6 to their armor score whenever they do so. It's very nice defensive magic. And then the third spell in the Book of Ava is Ice Spikes. You can make a spellcast roll to summon large ice spikes within very far range. If you use them as a weapon, on a success, they deal d6 physical damage using your proficiency. Very self-explanatory. So here you've got 3, from what I looked at, which I have not gone through and looked at every single ability tier 1 through 10, but I have done an overview of them. And in the grimoires, it does appear that each grimoire is going to come with basically 3 spells in it. So your characters that have access to the Codex domain, which is the Bard and the Wizard, they're going to feel like they have access to probably more magic than other characters, because the Codex gives them multiple distinct ability or spells that have distinct uses. So it is going to make them feel have that vibe, that feel. Although as we go through and as you look through the higher level, the higher tiered abilities and spells, you will see that some are very diverse in nature and will have multiple uses depending upon your creativity with them. Let us continue on. Our next domain is the Grace domain. The Grace domain belongs to bards and rogues. And the beta has this to say about the Grace domain. Grace is the domain of charisma. Through rapturous storytelling, clever charm, or a shroud of lies, those who channel this power define the realities of their adversaries. Bending perception to their will, Grace offers the wielders raw magnetism and mastery over language. The first card is a spell. It has a recall of 0. It's called Enrapture. You make a spell cast roll against a close target. On a success, you can temporarily keep their attention on you, narrowing their field of view and drowning out any sound but your voice. Once per short rest, you may also mark a stress on a success to deal a stress to the target. So once per short rest, you can mark a stress whenever you do this to also cause a stress to your target. That is a spell. This is the first domain that we've got into that has both spells and abilities in the tier, in the card choices. Your second Grace card is got a recall of 1, and it is called Inspirational Words. You can imbue your speech with enhancing power. At the beginning of a session, place a number of tokens on this card equal to your presence score. When you recite your words, spend a token and choose an option from the list below to grant the ally you are speaking. You choose an option from the list below to grant to the ally you are speaking to. If the action tracker is active, you place that token on it. At the end of a session, clear all tokens. So if you do this while the action tracker is going on, you set that action tracker that you remove from your card onto the action tracker. And the options that you can provide to your ally are you can clear a stress, you can heal a hit point, or you can gain a hope. And the tokens that you put on here are equal to your presence score. Just looking to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I did not. So that is Inspirational Words. Very nice, surefire buff to give to your allies. Your presence score, you can clear stress, heal a hit point, or gain a hope. And you have probably at the onset, you're going to have a presence of a +2 or a +1. So you'll either start out with 2 or 1 tokens on this card each game session, and you spend those throughout the game session at your discretion. The third and final ability in the Grace domain is a 0 recall cost ability. It's called Deaf Deceiver. You can spend a hope to take advantage on a roll you make to deceive or trick someone into believing a lie you tell them. So it's basically very straightforward. Obviously, spend a hope and improve your odds of getting your lies to be believed. That covers Grace. And the next domain that we're getting into is called Midnight. Midnight is the domain of rogues and sorcerers. The beta says that Midnight is the domain of shadows and secrecy. Whether by clever tricks or cloak of night, those who channel these forces are practiced in the art of obscurity, and there is nothing hidden that cannot reach them. Midnight offers practitioners the incredible power to control and create enigmas. Let's take a look here. Okay. The first card, Tier 1, is I got a recall of 0. It's called Uncanny Disguise. It is a spell. When you have a few moments to prepare, you can mark a stress to don the facade of any humanoid you can picture clearly in your mind. While disguised, all presence rolls to avoid scrutiny have advantage. You place a number of tokens on this card equal to your spellcast trait. When you take an action while disguised, you spend one. After the action that spends the last token resolves, the disguise drops. So, you using your spellcasting trait, which will vary depending on your class and choices you have made. That's how many tokens you put on it whenever you create the disguise, apply the disguise. Whether you want to represent this as a, ritual of, focusing and manipulation, or whether you want to, be a character that is applying an actual disguise, which would be pretty impressive with the variety of ancestries available in Daggerheart. But it is your fiction and your way to determine how you want to do this. It is a spell, so don't get hung up on is it what is this facade? It's whatever you want to flavor it as. The mechanics are very straightforward on what it does. Let's move over to the second card in the Midnight domain. It has a recall of 1, and it is a spell called Rain of Blades. You can spend a hope to conjure throwing blades that strike any enemies very close to you. You make a spellcast roll, and all targets that you succeed against take D8 plus 2 magic damage using your proficiency. If any targets you hit are currently vulnerable, they take an additional 1d8 magic damage. And I do want to remind you all that whenever it says D8 plus 2 magic damage using your proficiency, the proficiency is the number of D8s that you get to add. The plus 2 is a plus 2. It doesn't multiply with the proficiency. So it's not at second level, or if your proficiency is 2, you don't do 2d8 plus 4. It's still 2d8 plus 2. Just wanted to clarify that in case there was any confusion on those modifier pluses. The third card for the first tier of the domain of Midnight is a 0 recall cost. It is an ability instead of a spell. Pick and pull. You have advantage on any attempt to pick a non-magical lock, disarm a trap, or steal an item from a target, even through stealth or by force. Either through stealth or by force. So regardless of how you're doing it, you have advantage whenever you have this in your loadout. To pick a you have advantage on any attempt to pick a non-magical lock, disarm a trap, or steal an item from a target. Period. So that is your midnight domain. We are now 2/3 of the way through the domains, and the next domain that we will be discussing is the Sage domain. Sage domain, as we know, belongs to the Druid. It also belongs to the Ranger class. Sage is the domain of the natural world. Those who walk this path tap into unfettered power of the earth and its creatures to unleash raw magic. Sage grants its adherents the vitality of a blooming flower and ferocity of a hungry predator. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the domain cards for Sage. So the first one is got a recall of 1. It is a spell. It is called Vicious Entangle. Make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, roots and vines reach out from the ground and temporarily restrain them. That is, restrain is italicized, which means that it is got a mechanical definition is what that infers. I'm pretty positive. And it deals 1d8 plus 1 physical damage. On a success, you may also spend a hope to temporarily restrain enemies very close to your target as well. So, make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, roots and vines whip out, restraining that target and doing a d8 plus 1 physical damage. If you've succeeded, you can also spend a hope and then temporarily restrain any enemies very close to your target. It's a very nice entangle, very iconic, nature-y type spell that has long been associated with druids and their ilk. The second card in Tier 1 is a 0 recall. It is an ability. It is called Gifted Tracker. Make a spellcast roll to track or ask the GM one question you'd be able to learn about a specific creature or group of creatures based on signs of their passage. If you spend a hope when you do so, you get to take advantage on the roll. If you encounter any creatures that you've tracked, your evasion against them is a +1. Very self-explanatory, very nice way to. I think it very nicely addresses tracking in a fashion that makes it special to those that have the Sage domain, but does not make it. I mean, anyone can attempt to track somebody. That's a given. And I think this is very nice in the way that it gives those who have the Sage domain a little bit of a boost whenever they're doing tracking. Because it's in their wheelhouse, right? It's what they do. They should be better at it in some way. So if you want to be that tracker, definitely the Gifted Tracker is excellent choice. And then you've got the third card, 0 recall. It's an ability called Nature's Tongue. You can speak the language of the hidden natural world. When you want to speak to the plants and animals around you, you get to make an instinct roll. DC of 12. That's a difficulty check number. The number that you need to meet or beat on your duality dice. On a success, they'll give you the information they know. With fear, their knowledge might be limited or come at a cost. So if you succeed with fear, it's telling you that's your opportunity to maybe make the animal or plant either their awareness of the situation or what they can be telling you is limited, or they're wanting to negotiate. It's going to cost you something to get this information from them. In addition, whenever you make a spellcast roll, while within a natural environment, you may spend a hope before the roll to add a +1 to the result. So anytime, not only does Nature's Tongue allow you to communicate with plants and animals, but whenever you are in a natural environment, and you need to make a spellcast roll, you can spend a hope before you roll. This is important, and it is an important distinction, and you should enforce it. Give everybody some grace at the beginning, right? Everybody's learning their characters. They immediately think of it. That's going to be a GM call. But once everybody knows their abilities, and what have we drilled down on? Know your cards. So it is going to become very quickly the responsibility of your player to remember and use it before they roll if they want to do so. You know your table, you know your people. You do with that what you will. I know that I've got some players in the past that I've played with that I would be more inclined to allow them to state it, especially if they're stating it before, if they're rolling and the dice have not finished rolling, and they're already going, oh, my Nature's Tongue. Use your judgment. Remember, we're all here to have fun. We're all here to serve the fiction, and do what you feel is best. But overall, encourage your players to be responsible, to know their cards, and to abide by them. It is of course our duty to adjudicate and do what's right, but this is not stated on. You notice we haven't come across a single other domain card this whole time that has said you need to do it before the roll. And so that is why I think it is important to make that distinction, and not allow people to hold the hope until they are for sure that they're going to need it. There's other abilities and cards that obviously you have that option of waiting to see and then deciding to spend your resources to augment the roll. This one specifically says you need to do it before you roll. And that is why I think it is important to do what the card says. Be a bit of a hard ass about it. Give your players the grace to learn their cards and play. But don't be a softie on this one. And I encourage you not to be a softie on other ones that are similar to this, because of the specificity and the clearness on these domain cards. I think it is important that you stick to your guns and play it fair. That being said, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll move on to the next domain, which is the Splendor domain. The Splendor domain is shared by Seraphs and Wizards. Splendor is the domain of life. Through this magic, followers gain the ability to heal, though such power also grants the wielder some control over death. Splendor offers its disciples the magnificent ability to both give and end life. Alright, let's check this out. So, our first card is a spell. It's got a recall of 1. It's called Bolt Beacon. You can make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, you spend a hope to send a bolt of shimmering light towards them. You treat it like a ranged weapon, dealing D8 plus 2 magic damage until using your proficiency and making them glow brightly. they become temporarily vulnerable. Oh my goodness, I do apologize. I'm going to have to blow my nose here. I'm going to mute. All right, my apologies, and I appreciate you bearing with me. The congestion is real, people. Hopefully, I will get through this in the next day or two and start feeling better. I certainly would like to. I'm over it. Let us get into this bolt beacon again. Let me reiterate, you make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, you spend a hope to send a bolt of shimmering light towards them. You treat it like a ranged weapon, dealing d8 plus 2 magic damage using your proficiency and making them glow brightly. They become temporarily vulnerable. Very nice little ability or spell. The second card in Tier 1 for Splendor Domain has got a recall of 1. It is a spell called Mending Touch. You lay your hand upon a creature and channel healing magic to help close their wounds. When you can take a few minutes to focus on this person you're helping, you can spend 2 hope and heal a hit point or a stress. Once per long rest, when you spend this healing time learning something new about them or revealing something about yourself, add 2 hope about yourself. The 2 hope you spend heals 2 hit points or 2 stress instead. So, what is this doing? This is encouraging role play. This is encouraging those moments in fiction where you're vulnerably either learning something from your allies, about your allies, or you're imparting something of yourself to them. You get to basically double the juice you're getting from the squeeze, right? You're spending the same 2 hope, but instead you're getting to give them 2 hit points or 2 stress instead of 1. Very nice ability. And then, or spell. The third card has a recall of 0. It is an ability called Reassurance. Once per short rest, after an ally attempts an action roll, but before the consequences take place, you may offer assistance or words of support. When you do so, they may re-roll their dice. They must accept the result of this new roll. So this is a excellent ability that is going to allow you to buff your allies, make them, you're going to give that opportunity after an action roll to change the outcome. And that's got a very good feel to it. It is a once per short rest, so that will be something that you, provided your group takes short rests, anywhere from 1 to, I believe you can take 2 short rests in between long rests, so up to 3 times per long rest if you take those short rests. Very nice, very nice. That brings us to our final domain, the Valor Domain. The Valor Domain is shared by the Guardians and the Seraphs. Valor is the domain of protection, whether through attack or defense. Those who choose this discipline channel formidable strength to protect their allies in battle. Valor offers great power to those who raise their shields in defense of others. This is all about those of you that want to play those tanks. All right, let's look into it. Our first card in the domain, the Valor Domain, is an ability. It's got a 0 recall. It's called Forceful Push. You make an attack. Make an attack with your proficiency, your primary weapon in melee range. On a success, you deal damage. Push the target out of melee range and may spend a hope to also make them temporarily vulnerable. On a success with hope, you get to add an additional d6 to the damage dice of this attack. So once again, let me reread that, since I was kind of on the verge of hacking and coughing. This ability is called Forceful Push. Make an attack with your primary weapon in melee range. On a success, you deal damage. You push the target out of melee range and may spend a hope to also make them temporarily vulnerable. On a success with hope, you get to add an additional 1d6 to the damage dice of this attack. Not bad, not bad. The second card in Tier 1 for Valor, recall cost of 1. It is an ability. It says, I am your shield. When an ally very close to you is going to take damage, you may mark a stress to stand in its way and take the damage instead. You reduce the damage by a value equal to your strength trait. You may also reduce the damage by spending armor slots. So automatically get to reduce it by your strength, intercept the attack, reduce it by your strength, and then you can also reduce the damage by spending armor slots. The third ability in the Valor domain is a 0 cost ability called Bare Bones. When this card is in your loadout, if you choose not to equip armor, you have an armor score equal to 4 plus your level. So this is for those guardians who want to represent someone who is not the heavily armored, knight or paladin. You want to be the defender that is not wearing armor. You want to be that guardian, that maybe martial artist, what have you. You're an unarmored character. All right, that brings us through. We've covered all of the Tier 1 domain abilities. We've gone over all of the domains. Once again, just to reiterate, the classes that have access to each domain. Arcana is the domain of druids and sorcerers. Blade is the domain of guardians and warriors. Bone is the domain of rangers and warriors. Codex is the domain that belongs to bards and wizards. Grace is the domain that belongs to bards and rogues. Midnight belongs to rogues and sorcerers. Sage belongs to druids and rangers. Splendor belongs to seraphs and wizards. And Valor belongs to guardians and seraphs. Appreciate you checking out this episode. I hope you're enjoying the series. Next episode, we will start diving into the classes themselves. What options you have whenever you're choosing your classes, and how those choices affect you. Appreciate you sticking with us. I hope that you are getting ready to get a Daggerheart fix somewhere. I know that I'm excited to start telling some sagas and participating myself, and we will see you here shortly. I will be back with our first class episode after I get this episode uploaded and edited to YouTube. We'll see you directly. This is Rollinwolf. Thanks for tuning in. If you have the opportunity to make someone else's day better, please do so. We could all use a little bit more light and love in the world. You have a good day, and we'll see you soon.